welcome to Unsourced Wall. As always, my name is Elvis, and I am your host. Alright, so I just want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and everything in between, because, well, this is going to be releasing just a couple of days shy of that, and I just want to get that in at the start. Alright, so it's going to be kind of a packed one, I think. Not, fortunately, in terms of comic releases, but we have a huge review extravaganza, it seems, because not only am I reviewing the season finale and overall season of Titans, but also Aquaman and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Both of which I said I wasn't going to see. I was always going to relent on Aquaman, let's be honest. But I was dragged to Spider-Verse, so why the hell not? Alright, so let's start off with some news items first. In terms of movie news, we do have the brand new Hellboy trailer. And by brand new, I just mean actually released, because it is the exact same trailer that was shown at some convention a while back. And it was that the trailer was really, really bad. But now we can actually see what's going on in it. And it doesn't look any better because of that, let me tell you. It still has that really off-putting, jokey tone that seems like it's trying to be a mix of Deadpool and Guardians of the Galaxy, but also trying to ape the semi-joking tone / lightheartedness of the Del Toro movies too. Not meshing well and janky and just really, really messy. I am not excited for this at all. I think it's really clear from what the plot that we can glean from the trailer that they're really trying to set up a trilogy, with the sequel being like the actual Storm into Fury and the one after that being Hellboy in Hell. So this probably won't be a self-satisfying cinematic experience. So I don't know. I wish them the best, but it doesn't look like it's going to be smooth sailings ahead. We also have the new trailer for the new Men in Black movie called Men in Black International. And the excuse I'm using to bring this up is that Men in Black was always based off a comic, and why the hell not? Now, the trailer didn't light my world on fire. I think it looks okay. It definitely doesn't look significantly worse than Men in Black 2 or 3, which I know isn't high praise, but those were at least sort of like comfortable, watchable romps. So if that's the bar, then this definitely meets that. But it does seem like it doesn't have a certain something if it's not set in New York. And what interested me is that Chris Hemsworth actually put on Twitter, releasing the trailer with a caption saying, "You thought that Men in Black started in NYC? Think again." When like a huge part of the first movie's plot, and actually hinges on this, is that Men in Black did start in NYC. But the whole point of Men in Black International is that, yes, we know it's a global organization, it's always has been, and now we're going off and taking advantage of that, but come on. Anyway, I guess that's it for movie news. There's not really been that much. In terms of TV news, we do have a few things though, is that in more disquieting news, it seems that The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina has been renewed for 3 extra seasons, meaning that this will be going on to season 5 before season 2 is even finished shooting. So, wow, I can only hope that the show continues to improve, because like I said when I reviewed the Christmas special, it's not that it's terrible now, because it was terrible at the start. So it is progressing. And it just seems like renewing them right off the bat means that they have less incentive to actually develop and to genuinely try to write better. Fingers crossed though. Definitely fingers crossed. Now for DC Universe TV news, we do have several announcements. One is that they have cast Dr. Midnight for the Stargirl show. So yeah, they're rounding out the JSA as a whole. I can't wait until we hear who's playing Alan and Jay, because someday soon, let's get it going. And also, just now, the DC Universe social media has released the first teaser for Doom Patrol, which is a holiday teaser with all the main characters taking a holiday photo. It's quaint, it's nice. We do get our first actual look at Cyborg. I mean, it doesn't look as impressive as Robot Man, which is a high bar. Like, they went all out with Robot Man. Kind of looks like just gray painted plastic put on his face, but I mean, it's a show, so. But it looks pretty fine, and it looks like it has a good groove to it, just like the Backdoor pilot episode did. So yeah, fingers crossed. And lastly, for TV news, they have begun casting for the Lock and Key TV show on Netflix. And they cast pretty much the main characters, who I believe are the Locke siblings. So thank God that show is finally happening. It's been trying to happen for, I think, almost a decade now. So yeah, I'm pulling for it, and I hope it's good. And I hope it makes up for the really huge flaws of the comic. And last but not least, let's head on into comic news. pretty much the only thing that I really care about is that we have more details on the Female Furies miniseries that's coming out in February, because this new solicit that came out just the other day actually does get me a little bit more excited for it, because it makes it seem like it's taking itself in a black comedic crime direction, where it seems that the Female Furies have killed one of Darkseid's elite and now they have to try and cover it up, and I am all for that. That actually sounds like it has a lot of promise, like it's an actual plot. Already it has 4 or 5 points on top of Mr. Miracle by the outset of actually trying to tell a story and seeming like it is going to be a story. So yeah, I'm pulling for this. I want it to be good. I have my reservations, but can't wait to read the first issue and see what this is really all about. But yeah, that seems to be just about it. So let's move on into what I read this week, because, well, this was a pretty good week just by virtue of being really parsed down and only series that I actually really do like. First things first, we get the debut issue of Robert Venditti's Freedom Fighters Maxi series. And, well, I'm of two minds about it, because it really depends on who is telling the truth in this situation. And what I mean by that is that when this was first announced, Venditti said that this wasn't a sequel to Masterman, which is my favorite multiversity issue of all time. It was brilliant. I love it. I still love it. I reread it. It still holds up. But yeah, he said it wasn't a sequel, that he was just using and utilizing concepts and aesthetics that were developed for it, but he was taking his own take on Earth X/Earth 10 and the Freedom Fighters storyline. And I felt like that had a lot of potential. But on Wednesday, when this was released, he instead said that this is a sequel, that these are the same exact characters we saw in Multiversity, and it feels like my grade really depends on which one is actually the correct one. But to just get into the nitty gritty of it, I feel like it's a mixed bag. There are some really nifty and clever and just outright entertaining and boisterous things about this issue that I am totally for and I love and I think were really darn cool. But then you have the attempted integration of Multiversity's Masterman's darker, more complex tone, and the whole standard superhero mold story that Venditti is writing this as. It doesn't gel together and it feels disjointed, completely chaotic, and not in a good way, because you have one point where you get side characters reacting to the situation with, why are you doing this, Freedom Fighters? Did this really justify the means? That's the whole entire point of this. And then, like, 2 pages later, you get like this hero page where they're all posing and looking heroic and saying, we're the Freedom Fighters. And like, that doesn't work, because one of the things about Masterman is that it never does that. You get like one page, one splash page, but it's not something that's juxtaposed against anything else, because you're not there yet. Once things actually start rolling in Masterman, it's portrayed without any of that kind of flair, because it doesn't demand that flair. It knows enough that it knew that that would just make everything come off incredibly weird, and that's what this does. Not to mention that I did not need to see Dollman's decapitated corpse with lots of blood spewing out. There's some horrifying things in this issue. I can tell. That's one of the beautiful things about Masterman, is that you could play around with that whole foible of an idea. And the fact that they kind of sold their souls to the devil for their powers via the Gentry, via Savannah. So yeah, there were so much things at play. And this is like, okay, they're heroes and I can get behind that, but you can also have your cake and eat it too. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Like I said, there are some things I really enjoy about this issue. I think that it has a great amount of bluntness, outright like simplicity during the parts when it seems to know what it is that carry it through for me, but it's not altogether well constructed. So if I had to take it as its own thing, I would definitely give it like 6 out of 10, right? 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. But if I had to take it as a sequel to Masterman, it'd be 2 thumbs down, like maybe a 4 or 3 out of 10, because in terms of quality, a shocking drop down. I guess we'll see as the plot develops, but I really hope it isn't a sequel to Masterman, because I really want to like this. Alright, so next up we have League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Tempest #3, which is the midway point of the final story arc. And, well, it's still really good. I'm really enjoying this arc. It is hitting all the buttons for me. We get, again, more of a circling around closure sense, which I always enjoy. I love it when series end where it seems like the narrative has come full circle, and we get so much of that here. It's amazing. We get a lot of really fun techniques in terms of switching up mediums. It's not the first time this series has done that. I think the biggest time it's done that was Black Dossier, but Black Dossier is like a slap in the face because it just overrides and overpowers you. In this, it actually handles it well by making them both perception changes or mood changes or flashbacks, and it works. It really does, and it helps keep a sense of momentum, even though it's a lot of people talking, but it's inventive and it's really fun, and I think it knew how to carry itself. So the main story in proper Midway fashion is the turn. We have had 2 issues already of James Bond just completely taking the heroes and the story by surprise and coming out on top. So right now we're starting to see the seeds of the reversal. So it's simplistic, but it's still really finely done, and I can't wait to see what they come up with, because right now you see a lot of the characters coalescing together. You see the plot actually trying to keep that sense of adventure, which has been missing for a long time, because now I'm invested in seeing like, okay, what's their plan? What are they gonna do? And really having fun being a little bit behind the characters. So yeah, I had to give this 2 thumbs up, maybe even 3, because like always, I am still insanely endeared toward the backup material, which is that Silver Agey British comic superhero mashup. It never fails to make me laugh and just be genuinely heartening. 3 thumbs up, because hell, I love it. I really do. Alright, so that's it for what I read this week. Like I said, short week, but it was still an insanely satisfying one. So yeah, that was great. Now let's get into movie reviews. I'll put a time code in the description and you can skip ahead like that. Alright, first up, let's do Aquaman. Alright, so basic non-spoiler review. I thought it was a fun watch, but it is really long and there are a lot of flaws that are only counteracted by strong direction and a strong creative force behind the camera. So is it worth a watch? I think yes, but I would catch it on a matinee. Alright, so to give a more in-depth review, let's start right now. Use the time code if you want to skip ahead. I thought that this was probably something that I will have to admit I am slightly wrong about, because I was really afraid, and anyone who's listening has known this for a while, that Jason Momoa and Amber Heard were going to sink this movie with their inability to act. And that's not the case here. Although they don't have a lot of range at all either. What the movie does is that it uses almost a literal ton of jokes and gags in order to buffer out their inability to do other stuff. Because if you're laughing, if you're thinking that's quirky and cute and charmingly disarming and funny, then you won't really notice that they only really have one tone to them. And it's fine. That's completely fine. You're not there to watch high drama either. It's perfectly okay for a superhero movie to be a blunt note, as long as it still hits that really well. For what it's worth, Jason Momoa, he might not be like the most complicated and most engaging actor, but he can take a joke and he can give one too, so that totally works in their favor. A little bit less with her though, because she is just stoic all the way through and she plays like the straight man and they're co-leads. As for the 2 of them together, they really don't have any chemistry. And that would also completely sink the movie, because a huge chunk of it is about their developing relationship and we're supposed to be emotionally invested. But again, they do not work together at all. What does end up happening is that whoever wrote this at least knew how to create an enjoyable on-screen movie romance, because they do get a lot of scenes and set pieces dedicated to their romantic relationship that are good. Like, these scenes work because of just how these scenes are. So the fact that Momoa and her don't really work together means a little bit less, because at least the writing and at least the setups and the direction of these scenes is doing all the work for them. So like, okay, I don't really believe that they're in love, but I'm still enjoying the scene because of what it is and how it's done. So that was some points to it too. So this movie really did win me over by showcasing just how it was able to circumvent a lot of the things I felt were going to be mishandled. So that was really nice to notice, because it shows that people aren't asleep at the wheel here and they really did want to make a proper movie. In terms of things that I didn't quite gel with, is that the movie is very perfunctory. The first act of this movie, maybe the first half, is just plot point after plot point after plot point. It's nonstop. Everything to do with anything, you're just being propelled by the script and nothing really that insanely fluid. That was really off-putting. It can feel very stilted at times because you're just lurching forward every so often. But once it hits the groove, you're carried forward by a genuine sense of adventure, and it feels like it has a good momentum. But then the last 20 minutes of this movie come to a stop, and it's like a complete boring stretch of time that you can't wait to end. Things are still happening, but it feels like it's just being dragged out. So yeah, those are two things that I would have to take against this movie and actually take it to task for. Now, for things that surprised me about this movie, one thing that did surprise me is that with Ocean Master, they gave him a little bit more to do, only near the end though. That didn't come off as such a downgrade from the New 52 Ocean Master, who I really love and I thought was really great. It's not really like this I'm an evil bastard crusade with him. It's got a little bit more going on, which I think is a bit inconsistent because he does go through the movie doing evil bastard stuff. But it's nice that at least near the end, they sort of gave that up a little bit more. And really, I guess I can't wrap this up without mentioning Black Manta, who is unfortunately in just a fraction of this movie, honestly. But he sells all of his fraction, and I really thought they did a great job with keeping his motivation and melding it with the New 52 version, where his dad is killed, because it doesn't allow itself to be fully about one-sided revenge. When he shows up and his dad's alive, he's already kind of obsessed with Aquaman. Okay, yeah, that's great. Now that his dad is dead, it only amplifies those feelings, and I thought that was a great mixture of the two. He also gets this one amazing scene set to It's No Good by Depeche Mode. That is definitely the kind of song that I would have picked as a middle schooler. Oh, this one mentions he's gonna get that person. Let's use that for this insane, relentless archenemy's origin song. And it works, it really does, and it's fun, and it's very stylistic. It's a very stylish movie. And so it's a shame to see him go, because it's so obviously to set up a sequel, and we get a stinger, but I felt like this movie was already so vast, and so encompassing with a lot of this stuff, that they shouldn't have done that. Have him be fully more tied to the Ocean Master stuff, to the point where he is completely definitively defeated, so we have this one major Aquaman movie that is just only about itself. This movie, it's not perfect, but it's still an enjoyable romp, and I had a great time with it. 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle, or probably 6 out of 10. Alright, so next up we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And so, just like Aquaman, let's do a basic review right now, non-spoilers. And so here we go. I thought it was decent. I thought it was really entertaining, and I had a good time with it. There are some things that don't gel with me, both subjective stuff and some stuff that I think really did work against the movie itself. Is it the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen? Not really. Is it the best comic movie I've ever seen? Also not quite. I don't think this movie is being overhyped per se. I can see why people are really responding to it, but I think that it's definitely a really entertaining ride. Alright, so let's get into a more in-depth spoiler review. And I'm going to split this up into 2 parts because, like I said, there are some criticisms that I have that I know are entirely subjective. So let's go with those first. So first of all, the humor. It's fine. It's Spider-Man, jokey, that's great. Some of them I found funny, some of them I didn't. Although I will say it did have a decent hit rate, and even when it's not, it's still at least earnest. Next things up would be the stylization. I think that this movie does a lot of great stuff with the visual look of it and with how it presents some scenes, especially some really great action scenes and set pieces where things are really meant to be insanely expressive and also just completely out of the ordinary. I'm not knocking that when I mean stylization. I'm more knocking other things, like when the text balloons pop up and all these other kind of accoutrements you don't need on the screen. It just feels like it's cluttered and slightly distracting, honestly. It just felt like things were being pulled in a lot of different directions visually when it didn't need to be, because you already have the full brunt of this insane depth of animation that you're already going to be utilizing in other places. And lastly, of the subjective stuff, I have to say that, well, I wasn't really a fan of the storyline, mainly because of how I think it cluttered up the movie itself, I thought that by just sheer majesty, we finally got a Miles Morales who is a solid, rounded, actually engaging and interesting character who could hold a story and a movie all by himself. And then we have like 6 other characters who are all just there for punchlines, stealing the focus, and just really sort of dragging everything out. And it felt like a missed opportunity to actually really do some amazing stuff with Miles. And I'll get into more of that later. There are some things that I feel do actually fall under the category of actual critiques, but just from the outset, I wasn't really a big fan of the whole premise and to the extent that they took it. Although I will admit that as just walking punchlines, these characters that they introduce are also kind of funny here and there. They have good hit ratio too. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag. This movie's a mixed bag. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, to move on to actual sort of stuff that I thought were actual drawbacks from the movie, it's those characters again, because they don't really add much. You have Spider-Noir, you have Penny Parker / Spider, and Spider-Ham. You have these 3 main side ones because they're not really main characters. They're just there to be plucky comic relief. And the fact of the matter is that they're too jokey for some scenes, and they really do pull away focus when you don't really need to have that pulled away. You could have just written them entirely out, and you wouldn't have lost any actual internal consistency or characterization, and it wouldn't have lessened any of the themes or the message at all, because you already have Ben Reilly Peter Parker, you have Old Man Peter Parker, you have Spider-Gwen, and you have Miles Morales. You already have the set theme, and so you have the other ones who are just flat characters that don't really do much except say one-liners. They do dilute a lot of the movie's more impactful moments in a few ways that were actually shocking to me, because I was actually invested and I actually felt like connection to Miles Morales' story in this. And then you have like Spider-Ham talking about what it's like to be a talking animal. Why do we need this? What does that even have to do with anything else, you know? And one of the big moments of this is that you have 2 amazing Miles scenes. One where his Uncle Aaron / the Prowler dies, and another where he has to be confronted, but he can't really reach out to his dad, telling him this news that he already knows. Because they're sandwiched and bookended by these over-the-top scenes where there's like a laugh a minute, and it just feels suffocating, and it doesn't let these moments breathe for the moments that they are. And so that's what makes this movie go from something that could have been really special and really great to something that was like a surprisingly entertaining watch. But yeah, that's really my only complaint about it. But it was still a fun watch, and some things I really enjoyed about it were, like I said, Miles' origin story and Miles as a character. They did such fantastic things with this. I'm shocked. Like, holy hell, making the Spider-Man who dies, which leads to Miles taking up the mantle, Ben Reilly, that was brilliant. That's like fantastic merging of stuff. It's inspired. It's honestly like clever, plus the message and the way it's handled is honestly entirely gripping and emotionally resonant. I felt stirred while watching this movie because of this message. Because you have Lord and Miller. One of their last movies, the Lego movie, was always compared to Grant Morrison's works because of the whole metatextual stuff going on. With this, however, I can't think of this movie in any other context than Flex Mentallo, because the first half of this movie is so entirely about what Flex Mentallo is about what superheroes mean. And before the bomb was a bomb, the bomb was an idea about creating a better idea. And that idea is Spider-Man. And it plays it to the hill. And it feels like, yes, that Spider-Man, or these superheroes in general, to this kid, to these people, to the universe that they inhabit, is just so impactful and is so meaningful, is really this amazing kind of thing. And I can't believe they pulled it off. Even though I have my criticisms, that's something that I thought was really great. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of people did. For me, it's something that could have been a one-of-a-kind thing into just something that was like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I'll give it like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with both of these. Aquaman and Spider-Man, it was quite a week. And, well, it's a great way to end off 2018 with. Alright, so let's move on into our last review of the day, which is the Titans Season 1 finale review. And it's called Dick Grayson, and it's kind of a letdown. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, or I might have cut it out in post, but apparently this show has had some editing issues, wherein apparently 2 to 3 episodes worth of material was cut from the show. That led to my belief about why maybe some episodes felt like they were floundering in the narrative as a whole, and that's probably why this season finale feels like it went out on such a whimper, because it has nothing to fall back on, and it probably wasn't even meant to be a season finale, because the behind the scenes footage that we've seen could only have happened after the events in this episode. This episode is once again just a huge character piece for Dick Grayson, and we've had like 8 of those in like 11 episodes this show has gone through. We didn't need another one. And the way it executes this one could have been really, really fun, because the entire plot is that Dick is trapped in this hell mindscape of his own by Trigon in order to turn him to the side of evil. And that could have been really entertaining, but what we get is just more trite stuff that we've gone over before and that we should have already been done with before. And so by the time the twist reveal happens in the very last minute of the episode, it's basically filler. And it's a shame, because this could have been a decent season 2 prologue. I mean, the previous episode with Dick rushing in to try and punch Trigon in the face could have been jerry-rigged to have been an okay season finale. It probably wouldn't have been as satisfying anyway, but it still would have been something, because it had a major plot development and you would have left off the season not knowing exactly what Dick's fate was. So it would have been suspenseful to think about waiting another year to figure out. But really, there's nothing to talk about with this one, because it's such a point blank retread of things we've seen in this show again and again. There is a post credits stinger that shows Superboy escaping from Cadmus and freeing Crypto. That has me kind of intrigued, because I love Superboy and I hope that they play him to all of his "Don't Call Me Superboy, the Metropolis Kid" strengths. But I'm not holding my breath for that. I am still looking forward for season 2. Overall, this season, for all the flaws it had, was a really entertaining ride when it hit the right marks, and it usually did. I can't wait for season 2, and I will watch it, and I hope that they'll be able to keep on doing all the good stuff they've been doing and not fall back into some really stupid mistakes. Oh, and again, apparently in Dick's hellscape, it's like 6 years in the future, and in his mindscape created by Trigon, Raven and Beast Boy are a thing, and they have to stop pushing that because holy hell, it's creepy. Anyway, yeah, 1 thumb down, 1 thumb middle for the season finale, but 2 thumbs up for the season as a whole. And, well, I guess that's it for this week. So I guess that means that we can move on into listener questions. And we have 2 great ones. Let's head on in right now. The first one is from the ever amazing Illuminated, whose links I will put below. You have to check them out, if nothing else, but to give yourself a nice holiday treat of reading these amazing comics. Their question is, what is one genre I like that I find underused? And what's a genre that I dislike that I find overused? Alright, underused romance, like actual mainstream romance comics. Now this came to mind because of some mutuals on Twitter and on bringing up the infamous Marvel comic book Trouble, which was an Aunt May origin story comic that was also pitched as a romance book. It was intended to be like in the old style of romance comics that they used to do, like in the 50s and 60s. Jack Kirby made his bones on romance comics, but it was the most backhanded, despicable, incompetent, and honestly really odd story to choose for a romance comic. Like, it was everything that could have gone wrong. So yeah, I want to see a resurgence, seeing people fall in love. Why not? I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's one genre that I would really like to see make kind of resurgence. A genre that I dislike that I find overused. There's not really a genre that I dislike per se. If I don't like it, I just don't read it and I just kind of forget about it. It becomes that thing where I don't really have much experience in it. So I don't really have that much confidence in saying this is why I don't like it, because I've purposefully stepped away from it. But a genre that I dislike that I find overused. Can I say 80s? Is 80s a genre? And I know that this is kind of hypocritical because I am a huge fan of the new GoBots miniseries. But then you have everything else that's coming out and it's grading, and like pretty much any wannabe retro period piece. And I know I should just say period pieces, but these things aren't even period pieces. They're like the representation of what unincorporated and unsubstantiated nostalgia look like. So I find it overused as fuck, because it's not just the 80s, it's like the 70s and 90s and everything that goes through this ring wheel. So yeah, thank you for those questions, Illuminated. Just wish you the best and happy holidays. If I don't get to say it again before New Year's. Our second question comes from the ever amazing Akicat, and their question is, what do I find unique to the comic book medium, and what are my favorite mangas? Now, I'm pretty sure I answered the question what I find unique to comic books in one of my early episodes, but let me try and think up what my answer to that was to be more succinct about it. And so the answer that I did give last time was that, in short, it's one of those mediums where if you're a creator and you can do both, you can do the writing and you can do the art just completely without any kind of huge entity oversight, then you can create something that is wholly your own, that is the purest representation of the story you have cooked up in your head. And there's something really wonderful about that. Your second question is, what are my favorite manga? And I haven't read a lot, I'll be honest about that. So just by virtue of pure honesty, the one that I actually do keep up with to this day is probably JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I first read it 3 years ago. Yeah, no, it was really, really fun, and I continue on with it. I haven't read it in a couple of months, but that's because JoJo Leon, the current story arc, is monthly, so I'm letting that accumulate. I also really enjoyed the original Devilman manga. There was this recent English release. I got the first volume of that, and it was just a lot of fun, and I had a really great time reading it. I'm planning on getting the second volume that completes the series sometime soon. In terms of things that I've read here and there that I haven't kept up with, I guess it would have to include things like One Piece, which I read the first couple of volumes of when I was like 12, but I could not keep up with it, especially because I was using my public library to get through volumes, and there was no way I was ever going to catch up, so I gave up on it. Dragon Ball is another simple answer, but hey, it's Dragon Ball, so why not? Everyone loves that shit. And I guess that's it. Like I said, I haven't really read that much manga. I think here or there are probably some Junji Ito shorts and series that I also really enjoy, but nothing really consistent that I can point to and say, yes, this, outside of the first two I mentioned, a couple of the smatterings of the rest. But thank you for that question, AkiCat, and I hope that my tastes weren't too offensive to you, but I would also like to wish you a happy holidays and Merry Christmas and everything. So thank you both so much, honestly. AkiCat and Illuminated, thank you so much for supporting the show, for always bringing in questions and comments. It means so much, especially from you two. Importantly, from everybody who has done it, it means so much. And as we near the last episode of the year, that's next week, I have to say that you guys have made this one of the greatest experiences I've had. So thank you both so much, and thank you to everybody. And before I sign off, I guess I should give a shout out to the cover artists for the show on Twitter. You should definitely check them out at DOTEMCEE. And if you have your own comments, thoughts, or questions that you want to send to me and hear discussed on the show, you can find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And well, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Thank you all so much. I know I keep saying all that, but I really mean it. It comes from like the bottom of my heart. And seriously, I hope that there's nothing but the best for you as 2018 comes to a close. See you next week, and have a good one.